Trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you. And before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts. Welcome, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 6th, 2011. I'm Rob Booker. I'm here with Scott Welsh.
Hello.
Remember, everyone, that trading currency is risky and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Nothing that we're going to say here should encourage you to buy or sell or do any one thing in particular. Remember, just overall, it's a dangerous world out there. Protect yourself. Scott, it's been quite the day in the currency world.
There's something going on, really?
For those of you that were not aware, the Swiss National Bank announced that it no longer appreciated anyone trading any of its currencies. I have a brand new fun tool to show off today. I want you to take a look at it with me, everyone. I will be shutting this off in just a bit because it's just a test. But Scott, I've got a test running of the radar screen right up on the forum inside of the radar screen section. And what this shows, Scott, is the 1 minute, 5 minute, and 60-minute Bossilator readings for a variety of currency pairs.
That is the best thing I've ever seen, I think. I think it is.
So what this is showing here in web-based form is that the Australian dollar, US dollar on the 5-minute chart, Scott, is at 11.59. Maybe we should check that out. I don't know if that's actually true. Sometimes those readings are coming through and they're not as accurate as they could be. Let's take a look at the Australian dollar, US dollar here. Well, you can see here that it looks like it rose up and touched it last night. You can see here that it looks like it did that. Oh, we were thinking about the 1 minute, weren't we? Let's take a look at that. It'll just take me like 3 years. Apologize for the delay. Yeah, I don't see that reading anywhere. So obviously there's an issue with the 1 minute Australian dollar, US dollar reading. You can see here it's clear that the Australian dollar, US dollar did hit the 800. Let's take a look at the pound yen and see if on the 1 minute chart that's accurate. We're just fine-tuning the measurements here. Yeah, it doesn't even have the value of the 800 in the right place. Let's see if the 5 minute is accurate. Who knows? Let's see if that's the case. It says the let's pick a currency pair that was unaffected by the movement last night. Euro yen. Let's take a look at the 5 minute euro yen. And here we go. Yeah, that's not going to be accurate either. Okay, so none of those numbers are accurate right now. So ignore them completely. Let's move over here. I'm going to remove this post. Get rid of that. Okay. Well, in other words, the radar screen is coming that will help determine the trades. We're just tweaking the algorithm to detect the 800 period simple moving average a little bit more accurately. All right, Scott, we talked about some crazy stock that you looked at yesterday. How's that going? Do you look at that again, or is that still in the works?
No, I looked at it again this morning. Let's take a look over here.
Yeah, I'll make you the presenter, and you could take over on that. Now you can see Scott's screen in the middle of the recording here. I'm going to record this webinar in two versions and post both versions. On one version it will be difficult to hear Scott's voice, and on the other version you can hear Scott's voice, but it will be almost impossible to watch the recording on a Mac. So go figure. Scott, let me have it.
This is Ahmed, A-M-E-D, Ahmedicus. We talked about it on a higher time frame chart. And I still haven't gotten a feel on what most of the people, what time frame they like to trade on. I've seen some 5 and 15, and even 30 minutes in the forum. But this is a 1 minute if you like to trade shorter term. This one, like I said, we showed it on a higher time frame. But as you can see, we're 708 bars away, so we're getting near that 750 magical. I would love to see this stochastic come down here at some point, cross back up. We can put the stop wherever the lows end up being. If it ends up turning up here, put the stop maybe below the lows. We've got so much room that we could even make a target that's not even all the way to the 800 and still make a very nice profit. Plus, it's not really part of our course, but you can see this gap here.
Right.
Stocks tend to fill gaps. They just don't like holes on the chart. So we've got the 800, we've got 708, we've got a gap. We can get a good trigger, or we could also, there's the 800 up there. I want to make sure everybody saw that. You could draw a trend line too. There are multiple ways that we've talked about to get in, stochastic and others. But that's a medicine. We also talked about the Dow Jones, which is kind of coming up. We did have a stochastic cross here, so we could have been in a profitable trade. There's our 800 up there. Or we could wait, be patient. It's at 735 now, if you're a counter trend trader, that is. Wait for it to get back down to 750. Maybe let this come back down here. We could have a pretty substantial trade up to 800 there too.
All right, so what Scott just said was on both of these trades, if for those of you listening and couldn't hear Scott's voice because of the type of recording that I'm doing here, on the Dow Jones Industrial, it looks like it's reaching the point at which we might be ready to make the trip back to the 800. We're reaching those, near the 750 mark on the 1 minute chart. So for those of you interested in something like that, you would wait for another stochastic dip into oversold territory, and then on the next pop back up, that would create a buy trade. That's absolutely brilliant, and it doesn't stay down there that long, right? It's atypical for it to stay down there forever.
Yeah, it should, especially on a 1 minute chart. You're talking about a short period of time, but it doesn't usually stay down there very long.
So,
Very long. So it could be today, it could be very soon on a 1 minute chart.
all right, I'll make myself the presenter, and I want to cover some ground on some questions that have come out recently. For those of you wondering about the markets today, almost everything on the short-term charts has been back to the 800, and there are no real short-term 1 minute, 5 minute trades. We're waiting for the Bossilator reading to get to 200 once again. And what I wanted to do instead is bring up a question that came up several times yesterday with one individual in particular who is in the course. And that question was the following: what is the definition of a trend? And we had some back and forth about this, and it was extraordinarily difficult to sort of get this point across. And here it is. If the Bossilator reading reaches 200 on any time frame chart, if it reaches 200, if we've been away from the 800 period simple moving average for 200 candles, that's the definition of a trend. If it's above the 800, then it's bullish. If it's below the 800, it's bearish. We don't care about higher highs, higher lows, or anything else. And this individual was telling me, well, if I sell back to the 800 at this point when this currency pair is falling down, I'm taking a trend trade. And I was like, okay, now we're just getting into semantics. And I'm going to bring you all back to square one. I don't care who on CNBC or in any book that you ever read defined a trend in any other way. I don't care about those words. I don't care about higher highs and lows and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's trash or garbage. I'm just saying that for our purposes, when you hear me say trend, I mean the Bossilator reading has reached 200 And if it's reached 200 as the currency pair or financial instrument is above the 800, it's an uptrend. I don't care about any other aspect at all. Zero. It doesn't matter. Period. And buying it is a trend trade, and selling it would be a counter trend trade. Period. No other descriptions of trend are important to me, and so that we're using all the same language, that's the way we're going to define it. The trend can be different on different time frame charts and whatever else. That's the end of the discussion about trend and counter trend, and there will be no other discussion. That's the end of it. Number two, Scott has mentioned frequently that a fair value of a financial instrument can be represented by the 800 period simple moving average. And a really brilliant comment was made that the fair value would be different on every time frame. That's absolutely accurate. We're not talking about fair value in terms of, fair value in terms of I'm going on vacation, what's the euro worth? We're not talking about that, or what should it be worth, or I'm angry because Obama has so much debt. The fair value of the dollar is zero. We're not talking about Glenn Beck or the Purchasing Power Index or the Economist Big Mac Index. What we're talking about is this. Fair value for the pound Canadian on the 1 hour time frame is the 800 period simple moving average on the 1 hour time frame. Fair value for the pound CAD on the 15-minute time frame is the 800 period simple moving average on the 15-minute time frame. Period. End of story. No more comments, no more arguments, no nothing. Scott, that's just the way we look at it. There's a different fair value for every time frame chart.
Well, if you're looking on a daily chart, especially for a stock, you could very easily say, and compare apples to apples, and say this is the fair value, and someone could run a fundamental analysis and come up with a number, and you'd be pretty close. However, if you're trading in a pit in Chicago, or if you're just day trading today, what matters today in the next hour is not that price way off the distance. It would matter what's the fair value of how things have happened right now.
Okay.
There's a different fair value for what I'm trying to accomplish today in the short term. That may have nothing to do with fundamental analysis that will give you a bigger picture. So each time frame has its own fair value for that particular moment. But which one is the right one? That's irrelevant. Doesn't even matter really.
For those of you listening on the recording, what Scott just said is that fair value is truly determined by the time frame chart that you're looking at. Now, if you look at the daily chart for a financial instrument, you could make the argument that that is the overall fair value of that financial instrument compared to other financial instruments in the big picture and in the long term. I would completely agree with that comment. But for most of us, just like Scott just said, for those of you that didn't hear, if you're trading on a day-to-day basis, you don't really give a crap about the big picture fair value of the financial instrument. You care about what the fair value is over the next 24 to 48 hours. Let's see what brilliant comments came through. Awesome. Gawoog is asking, how do I get on the webinar today? Well, it's too late for you now. And maybe you could check out Bossilator webinar registration and recordings. This guy is continually asking me questions that have already been answered and are completely obvious. So clearly, we need to do a better job, Scott, of explaining some things from the very beginning in a much more clear fashion. And I'm sorry, Gawoog, that is a very strange name. I'm sorry that you're not on the webinar today, and hopefully we'll get you here tomorrow. But that's where you're going to go. He can't hear me saying any of that right now, but he will watch the recording as long as he can find it. Everyone, that is our Bossilator Watchlist webinar for Tuesday, September 6, 2011. Let me mention one more thing, if you don't mind. One additional reminder. There is no short-term chart that has any chance of producing a Bossilator trade within the next 24 hours. If you are a short-term Bossilator trader, your day is over already. There is no trade here. There are no short-term trades. Because of the crazy movement overnight, there are no short-term trades on any currency pair financial instrument that I look at. But for Scott, there may be some in the world of stocks.